huge news this week, frightening news, a horror story in the weigh-ins with Cameron Smotherman.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron was at the weigh-ins. I was watching it live. I was tuning in for Paddy Pimblett. Came in at 154 for his fight with Gaethje, which we'll get to. And Cameron gets up, walks on the scales. He makes the bantamweight limit of 136. And just as he kind of steps to his left, all of a sudden, he just looks very drowsy. His head almost lightheaded. Sometimes I'm quite tall, so sometimes when I stand up, very quickly I get quite lightheaded. It was almost like that. Next thing you know,
say that about you, yeah.
Next thing you know it, he hits the stage, face plants face first, and it's like, oh my word. And it's just opened up this jar of, the extreme dangers of weight cutting in combat sports.
Spencer Oliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I know about those dangers of cutting weights, and I know the consequences. And that
Lewis might not know about the consequences for you, so tell him.
I used to cut weight, and it became a struggle for me to make the super bantamweight limit. And in my last contest, Royal Albert Hall, May the 2nd, 1998, I collapsed in the 10th round. I had a bleed on the brain. Went into a coma for 2 weeks. Thankfully, I made a full recovery, but there's a lot of fighters that haven't done that, and I was just very fortunate. But that is the dangers of cutting weight, and the reasons are, let me just explain very, very quickly, that they've got thousands of blood vessels in and around the brain. The brain loses the cushioning that it's already in because you're so dry, and those blood vessels lose that elasticity, and they become like bits of straw. One of them can snap, and the fight, like mine did in the first round, you get a heavy bleed and then the blood clots. And then, as we know in the past with certain fighters that we've lost, over the years, and certain fighters like, Gerald McLennan, Michael Watson, who have been seriously, seriously injured, that is the dangers of it. And I think that was a massive worry there, I saw.
Lewis,
and I was shocked.
Lewis, Teddy Atlas has come out and complained about it, the great Teddy Atlas. Now, culturally, in MMA, because of the background of wrestling that's so big in it, there are massive weight cuts for some of these guys. I remember fighters in the past losing 40 pounds in weight in the last 10 days to make lightweight or welterweight. What is to be done? Is there a fix? Should they be monitoring the weight of fighters all the way out like they do in boxing?
Well, this is the conversation now, because it's come on the biggest stage of them all. This is the first UFC card in this $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. So all eyes were on the weigh-ins. All eyes are on UFC 324. Spencer, you'd be better to talk about this than me in terms of what fix there is. But is rehydration clauses the answer to this? I mean, we saw what Chris Eubank Jr. was like ahead of both of his fights with Conor Benn. Do you introduce more weight classes?
But MMA guys seem to cut more weight.
Yeah, well, this is the dangers, because fighters say, is it more dangerous just dropping the weight right at the last minute, like you say, Gareth, 40 pounds over the last week or the last 10 days, or is it more dangerous being dehydrated all the time because you want to keep down the weight like I was? So I always kept in. I boxed at 8 stone 10, never went above 9'7", because it would be too hard to get back down again. I was literally so tight. So I was effectively always dehydrated. And then obviously what happened to me. So you go, what is the answer to this? And I think bringing in those weight checks is a good thing, because you can keep an eye on fighters for sure. But I don't really know if that is the answer or not, but I think in UFC, I think that there should be more monitoring over the weights, because it was clearly evident to see this kid drop weight very, very quickly, and that's why it's put him in a position that he's in. And, thankfully, and I can't believe I'm even saying this.
No, this is a very good point.
He collapsed on the stage
rather than behind
the stage. Because I'll tell you what would have happened if he collapsed behind the stage. There's that conversation then. I've just collapsed. You're my trainer. And that conversation, I still want to fight because I need the money. I've got to have this. And you might say, well, you know what? Let's go. You'll be all right. We'll get some water in you. But I'll tell you what don't happen in those 24 hours. You can't rehydrate the body enough. Doesn't matter if you drunk 50 litres of water. What happens is the blood vessels in and around the brain that lose that elasticity and become like bits of straw, they can't rehydrate in time. So they still stay like bits of straw, even though you think you've rehydrated your body. And that's the dangers of it. And that's what the fighters and the trainers still don't recognise. And that was my worry there, that God forbid he made it another 3 steps. I talked to Gareth about this, and got off the stage. We could have seen him in the ring, and then we could have been in a disaster.
He should never have been in the octagon, and thank God he isn't.